Welcome back to This Week in Formula One. This week is the week of the 2nd of February 2026 as we inch ever so closer to the start of the 2026 Formula One season. Now, earlier in the week, in a previous video, I covered everything that happened in the Barcelona shakedown, so I won't be covering it as extensively in this video, though I'll still be discussing it, of course. So if you want to know everything there is to know about what happened during the Barcelona shakedown, go check out the previous video that I made on this channel. I'll put it in the link in the description below. For now, let's get into it with our first piece of news, which is what we learned from the Barcelona shakedown. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not going to get into it as extensively in this video because I covered it all in detail in the previous video. And as per usual, massive thank you to the Formula One website for the news articles and Lawrence Barretto. So, what is there to know? Well, to put it simply, and there was just lots of mileage, lots of understanding of the new cars, lots of new driver learnings and driver experience. And it seems like a lot of the teams got majorly positive things out of the testings. All of the drivers had positive things to say and said they were excited to get going in the 2026 season in Bahrain testing. And also, a lot of teams didn't suffer through major mechanical faults. There were teams that did, but it seems like a lot of teams were able to get running with a good amount of mileage with very little problems, which definitely shows a good amount of reliability, specifically for teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, well, McLaren less so, but Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, where they were able to get a good amount of running with very little disruption, which is definitely an extreme positive going into the season. Hopefully we don't see too many mechanical faults or crashes over the course of the year. And of course, as I mentioned previously, only 10 out of the 11 teams run. Williams was excluded, though we'll get into that a little bit more with James Vars going on the internet and commenting about some of the things in a news article. Aston Martin also turned up late, which is important to note. They originally intended to run, I think, 3 days, but they only ended up running like 1.5 to 2. Seems like it was a major effort to get that car out to begin with, which is not that surprising to me, but I think it's cool that we managed to get a first glimpse of the Aston Martin, but we'll be talking about that later as well, in terms of how good it is. We'll be talking about it later. So yeah, again, it's been a very strong start for both Cadillac and Audi, as they were able to get out without any really major issues and get a good amount of running in going into going into Bahrain. Which is exciting. Of course, they both had some little problems and different things that happened, but they all got valuable data from all 3 days of the running, which is a major positive considering they're entirely new teams. Also, it was Arvid Lindblad's second time officially driving the Racing Bulls, which is exciting. Lando Norris also got the chance to go out on track with the number one after becoming world champion last year, which is exciting. And overall, all that being said and done, if you want to know in extensive detail everything that happened in the Barcelona shakedown, go check out my previous video, as I mentioned previously. So let's get into the next story. Adrian Newey's Aston Martin. This here is a quote from Mike Crack, who is, I think, the Chief Technical Officer at Aston Martin, stating that we can be proud and happy as he reflects on the emotional first run for new Aston Martin at Barcelona shakedown. Obviously, it's a big achievement to get that Aston Martin up and running in the shakedown to begin with. And it certainly seems to be a very extreme design as it has been kind of described by different people across the Formula One sphere. Very aerodynamically focused, which is not all that surprising considering Adrian Newey's expertise in the department. And yeah, I think I heard somebody mention that there's quite an extreme drop-off in terms of this side pod, and the side pod is extremely narrow to the point where you'd almost question how they even managed to fit the engine in there, but they did. And yeah, it seems like a car that heavily favors its aerodynamic load, which is not surprising, as I mentioned, because Adrian Newey is an aerodynamic expert. But yeah, obviously they've run this completely all black livery. Their full livery reveal, I think, is coming next week, so stay tuned for next week's This Week in Formula One if you want to know my thoughts on that. But in terms of where the car is at and how it's looking, I think it's looking nice. Certainly, I think I'm not the biggest expert on like the technical sides of why I think this car would be any good. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I recommend going and checking out some other videos on the topic if you want more extensive detail about how the side pod might improve the aerodynamic load. I'm ashamed to say I'm not all that familiar on the topic, but certainly I can comment on what I have heard, which is that it seems to be a car, again, that favors aerodynamic load, and it's been described as a very extreme design, which is interesting. But it seems like it was a monumentous effort for Aston Martin to get it out and get it running, as Mike Cracker said here, and they all seem to be very happy and very excited going into the 2026 season. Fernando Alonso seemed particularly positive in some interviews he did as well. So I think it's exciting for Aston Martin. Obviously, we won't know much until we get into the Bahrain testing, where we'll get kind of a better view, because they didn't get that much running done, unless I'm mistaken. Even Mike Crack stating here that they arrived a little bit late, but you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. They got it running at all, unlike Williams, so I think it's a positive. Yeah, overall, I'm excited to see what Aston Martin has to offer. Obviously, I think they're probably going to be one of similar to McLaren in 2024, where they're going to end up being insanely good as we get further into the racing season. But as of right now, it's hard to tell, though certainly the design is quite unique in comparison to other teams' designs. So let's get into Arvid Lindblad in his his second official testing run, because I think he was involved in testing before the shakedown testing. But obviously, yeah, Arvid Lindblad is an entirely new rookie going into the 2026 season. I've discussed it a lot now, but yeah, let's discuss it a little bit more. Obviously, Lindblad felt content after getting his first proper go in the racing balls, which is exciting for him. He was able to get a good amount of running in. Obviously, he's somebody who's got a lot of expertise in Formula 2, so it's not like he's flying blind here. But there's definitely a journey, as he says here, of learning the new car for, I think, all the drivers, but especially for Arvid Lindblad, considering it's his first ever season in Formula 1. To come in with the new regulations, I think will end up being a little bit of a challenge, but who knows? A lot of the rookies for the 2024 season took a lot of the challenges and they kind of just like blew them out of the water, essentially, and they were very successful last year. So I certainly think that I hope Lindblad has a similar kind of experience. Though obviously it's going to be difficult with the new regulations, but I'm glad he was able to get some good running out. So yeah, I think that's kind of all we have to say on the topic about how Lindblad will end up doing. We'll have to wait and see. It's very much still an unknown. Next story, let's talk about Lando Norris running with the number 1 on his car for the first time. Obviously, as we know, Lando Norris was the winner of the 2025 Formula 1 Championship season. It's a big mouthful. And this was his first time in the Barcelona Shakedown running the number 1. Now, if you're not aware, the number 1 is a number that is exclusively given to the person who won the previous year's Formula 1 World Championship. So if Lando Norris doesn't win the championship this year, he won't be able to run the number 1 next year. It'll just be for this year. But this was the first time he was able to run the number 1 on his car, which he has described as a surreal and unbelievable feeling and experience. And I'm happy for him. I think it's cool. Obviously, getting to run the number 1 on your car is an honor that only one driver every year gets to experience. Let alone, I mean, Max Verstappen ran the number 1 for like 3 years, I think it was, at the end of the day. So yeah, obviously I'm not the biggest Lando fan in the world, as I've expressed on this channel previously, but I'm happy for him, and I think it's really cool to get another driver to have the opportunity to run that number 1 and be that kind of world champion driver. It'll be interesting to see how Lando Norris goes going into the 2026 season, because it's a very different style of regulations. So I'm curious if he'll be able to dominate as much as he did throughout parts of the 2025 season. But that's all for later, you know. The Formula 1 season hasn't started yet. I'm happy for him that he was able to run the number 1. I think it's cool. Let's move on to our next story. James Vowles saying that the Williams are ready to take part in the Bahrain preseason testing. This came after a lot of rumors and reports that the Williams car had not even passed the kind of pre-testing crash results, which, I mean, it seems to be confirmed that they hadn't now. And yeah, James Vowles has now confirmed that they've officially passed all the crash tests, and he also confirmed that they were running their own kind of in-house testing program, which I'm sure was just like virtual testing and stuff, instead of the traditional, instead of participating in the Barcelona Shakedown. So yeah, obviously I think I'm still extremely concerned for the Williams team. It's not a great look to miss the entire Barcelona shakedown. I think that's kind of like not a situation you want to be in, especially going into the 2026 new regulations, and especially considering that they were the team that like got off the mark with starting their work on the new regulations first. So certainly it's extremely concerning, but James Vaz has officially confirmed in some Twitter updates that the team is ready to go for Bahrain, but I still don't think it's looking overly positive in terms of how well I think they will do, but it's very much hard to tell. He says that he's confident in our decision to miss Barcelona, and he's confident it was the right one to prepare for the first test in Bahrain and Melbourne. And yeah, I mean, if James is confident, there's no reason to doubt him, certainly. He wouldn't have made the decision lightly without heavy consideration, so I don't doubt that it was the right decision to make. But it's certainly not a good omen for Williams and how they will go in the 2026 season, especially considering all the momentum that they had through the 2025 season, and I'm nothing if not a little concerned. But it'll be hard to tell until we go into the Bahrain testing, which will be happening next week, by the way, so stay tuned for that. I'll be doing another full explained video on everything that goes on there. But yeah, in terms of how I think Williams will go, I'm not overly confident, but I hope they go well. So let's move on to our second last story of the day. We have Alpine clarifying rumours over interest from Formula Red Bull boss Christian Horner. It was widely rumoured a couple of weeks ago now that Christian Horner was going to purchase a considerable stake in the Alpine team. Of course, this was only a rumour. And this is following Christian Horner's leaving the Milton Keynes-based team in July 2025. So yeah, is part of a group of investors who have shown interest in the Formula One squad, which is somewhat interesting to me. Yeah, they sold 24% stake here, and Christian Horner seems to have taken part of it, along with Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds and golfer Rory McIlroy, which is interesting. But yeah, I think to me that makes a lot of sense that Christian Horner would kind of try to swoop back in, and I definitely think Flavio Briatore and Alpine is probably his best option, as most other teams seem to have been like, no, we're good, Christian, thank you. But whether this is Alpine directly, or as it says, his Otro Capital, I'm not the biggest investment expert, I want to clarify here, but it seems to me like Otro Capital is the one who held stake in Alpine, and they're the one who sold their stake to Christian Horner and a variety of other people. So it isn't so much that Alpine has directly contacted Christian Horner to buy part of their company, but it's just that Christian Horner has kind of weaseled his way into being a stakeholder of the Alpine kind of thing. Certainly, I don't doubt that this won't be the last, that Red Bull, and after his 2025 exit, will not be the last we'll see of Christian Horner. But whether or not he'll be really involved in Alpine, I think it's very hard to tell. Personally, I think I would rather he just stay away and go sit on his millions of dollars and never bother with Formula One again, because he's not exactly an exemplary figure, as we have known through the past, and his interest in the WhatsApp application. But I don't doubt that he will find his way back in. He was the driving force behind Red Bull's immense success over the 2022 regulations, so I don't doubt that there will be teams who will be interested in taking up his advice going into the future of Formula One. So for our final story, I want to quickly discuss McLaren unveiling their unique livery for Barcelona Shakedown. As I've mentioned a couple of times now in the past, in previous This Weeks in Formula One, they did a similar thing last year, and this is not their official livery. If I had to give an immediate guess, I think their livery will look extremely similar to how it did the past 2 years, but I'm not sure. And in terms of how this livery is, I don't like it as much as their camo livery last year. It's alright. But it's not their official livery, so I'm not going to get into too extensive detail about it. And with that being said and done, thank you for watching This Week in Formula One. I know this one was a little bit of a shorter one, but there wasn't as much to talk about, considering I'd already discussed everything that went down in the Barcelona Shakedown in the previous video. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below for anything that I missed this week in Formula One, and I'll discuss it next week in Formula One. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great, wonderful day. Bye for now. Peace. Bye.